Okay, this is the introduction to Italian cultural heritage. First of all, let me apologize for the glare on both sides of the screen. It's a very bright day outside, lots of snow on the ground, and no curtains at the windows. We live very far away from neighbors or other traces of civilization, and so that's what we get. Now, um, the course is organized chronologically, and I'm going to base it primarily on feature films and some documentaries. I am going to begin from the Roman Empire. The reason is kind of simple and complicated. One day, out of the blue, a friend, someone who I knew, asked me when the concept of Italy started. And I had to think for a while. And I had to then answer based on the current consciousness of Italians and what being Italian and what Italy means. I could certainly not put myself in the mind of people centuries ago who were talking about Italy, but were not really talking about Italians, for instance. So from a modern perspective, I would say that Italians would set the beginning of the history of Italy with the foundation of Rome. That occurred, according to the legend, in the year 753, 753 before the Common Era. Before the Common Era, also known as before Christ, to be clear. There is a legend associated with the birth of Rome. The daughter of some king has twins. The king has a dream where the twins are going to kill him. Therefore, he disposes for their death. The person who's charged with this task takes pity on the twins, puts them in some kind of vessel, and sends them down the river where they are rescued, in this case by a she-wolf who nurses them. And in fact, the symbol of Rome is the statue of a female wolf nursing two babies, two infants. As you can see, this legend has a lot of similarities with other historical and non-historical fictional legends, fairy tales. Well, I think Snow White more or less follows the same kind of plot. Certainly, the history of Moses develops along the same lines. So it's a common trope that we find in mythology all over the world. Now, Rome is born, as I said, by the legend in 753, 753, and at the beginning it is just a small village inhabited by a population of people who are called Latins and who spoke a particular language called Latin. In those days, that area was populated by several tribes of various dimensions, each with their local dialect, their clannish dialect, and the inhabitants of this village were the population, the nation, the people, the tribe that was called Latins. When we call them Romans, that happens subsequently with the establishment of a Roman of a state whose capital is the city of Rome. Now, why is that important for Italians in terms of cultural identity? It's because every culture needs foundation myths, a mythology that tells them where they come from. In a lot of cases, those mythologies are purely fictional. In some cases, they have an element of truth to them. Now, one of the very last nations that has achieved prominence in our history whose history we can document fairly easily. Oh, well, that's the United States. And even the United States needs, the people of the United States need these foundational myths. Foundational myth number one, for instance, is the famous shot heard across the world. The very first clash, which was not the first one, of course, but a clash that occurred in Lexington, Massachusetts, between the colonists or patriots and British troops. Another famous foundational myth is the Boston Tea Party. Another foundational myth, so there is a sequence of myths, not just one, but well, we can mention clearly the Declaration of Independence, Washington crossing the Delaware. All of these events are then somehow preserved in amber with elements of legend, elements of history. When the record is much older, obviously, history is less reliable, and there are many more legendary or mythological aspects, such as the fable, the legend of Romulus and Remus. Why is it important for Italians? Well, it's because everybody wants to be connected to a lineage of greatness, of success. Everybody wants to have inherited the quote unquote the blood of forefathers who are founders, who created a vision of the world. And in this case, Italians find succor in thinking about the Romans as their forebearers. A second moment that is of crucial importance for the Italian identity is the Renaissance, particularly the 1400s in the cities of Rome, Venice, Milan, and Florence, most of all. Those are moments of the highest achievements of artistic pursuits, artistic endeavors, not just in Italy, but in the Western civilization. So these are the kind of things that people like to recall about their own descendants. The Roman Empire. I'm going to stop here, and then I'm going to talk directly about elements of history of the Roman Empire that emerge or are the background for both Julius Caesar and Quo Vadis.